Well, obviously, there's been a lot of talk down here in the Gulf Coast about the pros and cons of being in the oil business at all, with the massive damage that's taking place down here, and that no doubt is going to be going on for a long time to come. There is the trade-offs that you talk about. Was the good far outweighing the bad in terms of the environmental damage that happened to Louisiana? And there's lots of concern about that, and for very good reason, because of the massive damage that will take place not just now but for months to come. One of the huge problems we're finding down here is that the cleanup could be worse than the spill itself, because the Louisiana marsh particularly is just one big sponge. It just sucks in that oil. The only way you're going to get it out is just to dig it out and destroy the entire marsh. Some people are suggesting maybe burning the marsh, hoping that the roots will stay surviving in the ground and therefore be able to survive and maybe a couple of years later come on back. So that's all the discussion focusing down there right now. I wrote a column last week that stirred up a lot of controversy down here. Most people agreed with it, but some took real strong umbrage with what I wrote. And what I was saying was, I raised the question, did Louisiana make a deal with the devil? Raising the question that going back into the 1950s, if you look at the South in the 1950s, you had an area that was below the rest of the nation in terms of economic level, educational level, that it was way behind. Oil hit Louisiana, and the boom started about in the 50s, the 60s. All that oil money came in. And you would think, well, gosh, with all those minerals, with all the chemical plants on the river, with all that was happening down there, Louisiana should be a long way ahead of other southern states. Yet if you look at national rankings in education in so many different areas, Louisiana is down at the bottom in many instances. The quality of health, overall quality of life. You take the educational comparisons. Back in the 50s, the two shining lights in terms of higher education in the South were the University of North Carolina, my alma mater up in Chapel Hill, and LSU. The LSU press, the North Carolina press, the great writers at LSU that took place, the poets. So many interesting things and things of accomplishment happened out of Baton Rouge and also Chapel Hill. And if you look at today, there's been a vast difference in terms of that balance. And I just raised the question, what would have happened if there had been no minerals? You know, the oil and the gas of states like Alabama, North Carolina, Georgia is in the heads of their young people. They said, look, we don't have the minerals, we've got to use brain power. And so was the trade-off worth it? Those of you not from Louisiana, if you come down here, what you'll see is a lot of waste dumps. And what happened was it would go through one corporation after another to the point where you couldn't find ownership. You couldn't tell who had actually dumped the waste, so the public had to clean it up. And we've spent hundreds of millions of dollars cleaning up these waste dumps down here. And then you've heard some very articulate descriptions on CNN with Anderson Cooper and a cross-section of other reports. I saw a good one on CBS recently showing how the marsh in Louisiana has been crisscrossed with pipelines. These pipelines service the rest of America with gas. There's gas pipelines, there's oil pipelines. But with the crisscrossing of the marsh, you undercut the marsh, therefore you diminish hurricane protection, you do a great deal of environmental damage. So a lot of money coming in, but you wonder when the balance takes place, was it worth it? I think the jury's still out on that, but you can make a pretty strong argument that maybe we might have done better if we hadn't taken all that that oil money. I guess there's two ways to look at it. Sure, you want the minerals. If you had a choice, the choice would be take the minerals, but put in strong protections, environmental protections, public protections, so that there would not be this massive pollution, that you wouldn't just drill this oil overnight, you'd spread out over a number of years, and use some common sense regulation to see that the damage would not have been done. That obviously didn't happen down here in Louisiana, and then we're paying for the piper for it right now. So yes, you want the minerals, but you want the protections, and without those protections, the damage is just astronomical, and we're seeing that today. Now, if you'd like to weigh in on that, I wish you'd email me, jb@jimbrownusa.com. Give me your differing opinion or supporting opinion. I'll read those emails on the air, and we'll talk some more about it. We'll come back right after this message.